You're listening to Worshipology with Kurtis Parks, a biblical, practical, and spiritual conversation about living and leading worship. Visit kurtisparks.com to learn more and check out Kurtis's books and latest resources for your worship team. Worshipology is a part of the Worship Leader Magazine podcast network. Worship Leader Magazine has a heart to equip spirit-led worship leaders with practical tools, theological insight, and encouragement for the local church. Today's episode is brought to you by Praise Charts. Whatever resources you're looking for on the latest songs in today's worship music, Praise Charts has you ready to go. Whether you need chord charts, lead sheets, or full orchestrations, everything is formatted for your team and available for instant download. Stay current, save time, and lead with confidence. Check out praisecharts.com today and get your hands on the freshest songs for Sunday. Now, lean into today's
Well, hey, thanks so much for listening to the Worshipology podcast.
Parks.
This is a biblical, practical, and spiritual conversation all about leading and living worship. And today, man, I couldn't be more excited for this conversation. I grew up a total Vineyard kid, and this guy is one of my heroes in songwriting. Brian Doerksen, say what's up to the Worshipology fam.
Hey, Brian Doerksen here from the West Coast of Canada, and great to be having this conversation today. I always enjoy these.
That's awesome, man. Now, you told me the house that you're calling me from, you've been there since 4 years old. That's amazing, man.
Yeah.
Deep roots.
I've experienced, but I've also experienced in my body and in my soul and in my spirit that place matters. And,
wow.
The summer of 1970, almost the summer of 69, which if you're
nice.
a Canadian,
Brian Adams would have you.
I recorded my last album in Brian Adams' studio, by the way. That's another crazy story.
Oh, my goodness.
But no, in the summer of 1970, my mom, we had just moved back from Paraguay. My dad had taken a 2-year teaching assignment in Asunción, Paraguay. And I was 2. When we went to Paraguay, I was 4. And my mom found this old farmhouse on 5 acres,
wow.
built in 1937. And she said, that's going to be our home. And
wow.
I don't know, that I've had all my first kind of like God moments on this property as a boy. I started writing songs on this property when I was a teenager. I'm still here.
Dude.
Yeah.
Well, it reminds me of a house that is in my wife's family. Her grandma had it in the 70s. Her dad now has it. I'm hoping one day we'll get it, but it's a beautiful place in Tennessee. And there is something that comes with a place, the roots that go down deep, and just kind of reminds you of where you come from and where you're going. Brian, dude, tell some of our listeners, I mean, you've had an amazing journey and the best is yet to come. And just tell us a little bit how your story, like how did you get involved in songwriting, worship leading, from Canada to all across the world? Give us a glimpse of that.
Yeah, well, I mean, maybe I'll start just simply that here on the property, a few feet away from where I'm talking to you, there's a ginkgo tree, ginkgo balboa, Japanese tree. A Japanese man built our house. And I remember as a boy lying on the hillside under the ginkgo tree, and it has these kind of interesting fan-like leaves. And in the summer, in the evening, as it would cool down, I would lie on the hillside and the wind would flutter the leaves. And I feel like I started experiencing and hearing the whispers of God.
Wow.
I love you. I've made you for a purpose. Like these kinds of like loving whispers, which really, I think, formed the foundation of the kind of songs I wanted to write and and my response back to my maker. So that was, and then I started, I love music. I started experimenting with little things. I had no idea that, of course, it would become as much of my life as it was. And it wasn't until I was 22, actually.
Yeah.
I was still 22 in the summer of 1988. And we had our first baby daughter. I was married already by that. I was married at 19. So I was 22. And I had this another profound experience. And out of that experience, I wrote a couple of songs. One was called Father, I Want You to Hold Me. And then the second one was called Faithful One.
Yep.
Faithful One, So Unchanging. And, I had no idea. These were just personal prayers, right?
Wow.
And I didn't know that, fast forward, however many years, and they would be sung around the world. And I, in May of 2023, I did Faithful One at the coronation prom at Royal Albert Hall in London, England, on the day Charles was coronated, and the whole church got together to pray for their new sovereign. And I had a 300 voice choir backing me with a full symphony orchestra. And I'm like, and partly I'm thinking, I wrote this song kind of in our bedroom, looking at my first baby daughter, having these moments of overwhelming love for her.
Wow.
But also the fragility and the vulnerability of life. And I'm like, okay, God, I need you more than ever. You're my faithful one, so unchanging. You are my rock in times of trouble. Even though I was, 22, and I knew that trouble would come, right? Yeah. I knew that there were life would present difficulties for me, for my baby daughter. And this was my prayer on that day. So, I think for me, it's always started with the whispers of love, and I try and pay attention to them, and I carry on writing from them.
That's amazing. I was just telling our church this last week when I was leading worship that, honestly, worship songs are really just prayers put to melody. And so how do you know, Brian, when you've got a song that is kind of that, wow, I'm having a moment with the Lord, I'm having a moment of just intimacy, versus, hey, this could be a moment where many people connect with the presence of God. And then what do you do with that song? How does it go from a faithful one in your bedroom to a faithful one at Royal Albert Hall? I mean, that's just wild.
Yeah. Well, first of all, we're not the architect of all of the elements of what will happen with the song.
Wow.
What we are architect or writer of is what we control. And I'm a songwriting instructor. I work with a lot of songwriters trying to help them write their songs. Is what we control is that those words, those melodies, the chords, how we compose that song as an expression of our heart. And it's really interesting because songwriting is such a blend of heart, of openness, of spirituality, all of those things. And it also has a craft element to it where you learn how the craft works.
Wow.
Now, if you get too fixated on the craft, you can start losing the heart, and you can start, it's like, I guess in any genre of music, you could say, I know the secret. I've got the secret formula to a hit song, and I'm just going to fill in these,
right,
the building blocks in, and it's going to move people, but it somehow doesn't move people. That's why AI music will never move truly the soul and the spirit of anybody, because it's just math, right? I mean, no degradation to math. I mean, I think math is good and it's important, but you don't create a piece of art by math. Or by random selection. You are the selector. You are the vessel. You are the instrument. I say, to songwriters, you're the songwriting instrument. And your soul and what you experience. So you take your experiences. Maybe you have this impression you're hearing the whispers of God. Maybe you read a scripture and it's like living, right? It just pops to life. And then this melody comes into your head as you consider that phrase and all of a sudden you're singing it. Like you said, exactly. You're singing your prayer. You're singing your surrender. You're singing your affection, you're singing your wonder, you're singing your journey, really, all of those things.
Yeah.
And you're going to do it in a way that's hopefully unique to you, but still accessible to other people, right?
That's good.
And I think, if you're really going to do this, in a way that it's not just a personal expression, that it could become congregational, it could be owned and sung by other people. That's where there's craft elements that come along, that you learn how to work with a melody in such a way that it's genuine to you, but it's kind of one of the expressions songwriters have. Well, does it pass the whistle test? Could somebody just hear it and whistle it back? Does it have that hook or that motif that people can remember? It's not so abstract,
right?
And again, music is like tension and release, or another way of saying it is like maybe some things that are a little bit more unexpected, but then you return to something that's expected. It's this blend, right?
Yeah.
The fresh and the familiar is another way of saying it. I always say, and that's even with lyrics, I think is so important. You have to say, if you're just saying the same thing that every other song says, then why would you turn to that song to say it? There needs to be some fresh angle in it. But anyway, so it's this blend, this wrestling of heart, intuition, and then some learning of the craft.
Man, I feel like we just had a master course on songwriting, Brian. Come on, man. Well, I think it's interesting because, you are seeing, and I love writing instrumentals. I've got a few instrumental projects out there, and it's interesting because in that world, AI generated playlists are becoming more and more prevalent. And I mean, I'll have people that are like, man, I was listening to this instrumental and this band, blah, blah, blah. And then I looked it up and it's not a band. It was all AI and I didn't even know it. And I said, it's interesting because art has typically been the language of culture. And the more and more that, let's say, AI has voice in the music space, the less and less culture is impacted by the true artists. And as the kingdom of God, we're called to create art that glorifies God, that draws people closer to his presence. And I think there's something to that, Brian, where now maybe more than ever, there is a need for the true artists and the true writers to not lose their voice or shrink back, but to really lean into the presence of God. How have you done that over the years where I think I was seeing something like over 330 songs on CCLI that you've written. And I mean, from all the Vineyard stuff and still today, and you're about to go on tour and lead worship. How does the songwriting element stay fresh? And how do you continually have a new song like David wrote 6 times in the Psalms?
Well, I mean, there's multiple ways I could answer that question. There's a lot of ways. One of the things I would say is, I'm a rhythm person. Okay. So, and I believe we as human beings are created as rhythm beings. And you look at the beautiful account of creation, and on the first day and on the second day, and then on the seventh day, the rest. And then this whole, there's a rhythm in creation and a rhythm in our humanity. And so what I do is I have a weekly songwriting appointment with myself. And I don't let that appointment get, lost. The only time it doesn't happen is when I'm literally on the road doing events and I simply can't do it. Though the funny thing is, even when I'm doing that, I'm still finding gaps to write. But what happens, so let's just say, the way I describe it this way is I go through life living, serving, caring, loving, walking in relationship to my wife, my 6 children, our 2 special needs sons, all of the layers of life, managing a home on 5 acres, all the layers. And while I'm doing that, I'm listening for the whispers, or to use maybe another metaphor, I'm looking for the seeds of a song. And then I collect the seeds. I collect them because seeds never come twice. When you get a flash or a moment of inspiration, that's the gift, that's the seed, that's the whisper, that's the start. But you have to collect it. because maybe you're out running an errand. Maybe you're having a shower after going for a run. Maybe whatever, it doesn't matter. And this thing, you have to somehow collect it.
Wow.
You speak it into your voice memo app on your phone, or you have a pad of paper by your bed and you jot the line down. Okay.
Yeah.
So you collect the seeds, and then I have a weekly appointment with myself where I show up for my 3-hour block, and I walk over to the piano that's right behind me there.
Wow. Yep.
And I have my notebook, I have my phone if I need to record a demo or whatever. And I either bring my seed collection with me, or I walk up to the piano and I open myself up and I say, Lord, I'm here.
Wow.
What's today's gift? What's today's? And I just go, I start. And now,
Wow.
obviously, like anybody, when you start something, we live in a world where we can access professionally produced, arranged, recorded, music.
Mm-hmm.
And it's crazy with streaming platforms. You can almost access every recorded piece of music that the human race has ever done.
Yeah.
It's stupid almost. Well, anyway, because when you start, it sounds faltering.
Yeah.
When you start, it sounds, maybe there's something there. Not so sure. You know what I mean? But you learn to let go, to turn off the editor and just go. Just give yourself permission to just be a fool, to sing, to try things.
Yeah.
And to have a moment. And this is all, of course, this is in private. There's a foolishness to this.
Wow.
I think just like there is often in prayer, one of the reasons why I think we're invited in the Gospels, when you pray, go into the secret, go into your closet, is because when you're around other people, you're conscious of other people, and it changes what you say or how you say it. You're worried. Oh, do I look okay? Do I sound okay?
Yeah.
Crazy stuff that us humans struggle with. But when you're alone and nobody else is watching or listening, it's like, what's that expression? Dance like nobody's watching. So when you're writing, you're like, nobody's watching or listening, and you are just free to experiment.
Wow.
And follow your heart and try things out, things that won't survive the editing process, but that's how you get there.
Wow.
And in all of these things, whether you're collecting the seeds or I'm in my regular writing time, I'm just processing life, spirituality, what I feel like my maker is saying to me, what I'm observing, and I'm always looking for gaps. I always write into gaps.
Wow.
So, like when I look at the repertoire, let's say, of our church and what we're singing, if I'm looking for seeds and ideas that would speak and sing into a gap that we're not singing about, versus having the 30th song about the same thing that we're already singing, right?
Yeah.
And, some people get, and that's the cool thing, of course, both with the creative spirit and how it works, is there's never an end to gaps that need to be filled.
Wow.
But you have to see them.
Yeah.
Right? You have to discern them. You have to recognize them. And you do that just by living and being open. Like always just going through life with an open heart and an open spirit and waiting for the whispers. And then I jump into the songs.
Wow. Okay. So I've got waiting for the whispers, right to the gaps, collect the seeds. I mean, if you're not inspired by that, you need to check your pulse, because that's pretty awesome right there. Now I got to ask about, when you write a song like Come Now's the Time to Worship, and a lot of worship teams, worship leaders listening to this, I would say for me personally, top 10 worship song of all time, not just in catchiness or the meter that it's written in or anything, but in what it's meant for my journey and what I've seen it do in the global and local church. When you write a song like Come Now is the Time to Worship, and I'm sure you've led that song thousands of times, how does that leading, how does that prayer, how does that song not get stale? And how does it, because I think there's a study done by RCA Music that said when you sing a song's lyrics 30 times, you no longer think about the meaning of the song. When you sing it hundreds, if not thousands of times, the danger is probably even more there. So talk to us a little bit about that. When you're singing a song that many times, how does that not get stale for you, Brian?
Well, I think one of the ways is I'm a story person, and I can't but help whenever that song is sung by me or by others, go back to the moment in which the song was birthed. And I was in it was a very, very challenging season. We had been working on launching a musical called Father's House back here in Western Canada. And it's a long story, but eventually it started out really well. The album did really well. The stage musical started out well. And then we kind of took it more semi-professional. We had like over 50 employees. We were launching a North American tour, and it collapsed, and we lost over $1 million.
Wow.
And our home. And because we put the equity from our home into it to try and keep it alive. And we also found out that our son, at this point, we had 4 daughters and 1 son, and our son had a condition called Fragile X syndrome and would require care for the rest of his life. Wow. So we were quite bewildered, disoriented, devastated even by some of these things. And I was offered a job in London, England, to lead worship and to train songwriting worship leaders in the UK and Ireland. And so we arrived in the UK not knowing a soul. Okay. Wow. And we had just gone through all of this collapse and all of this hard stuff. And I went for a walk one morning on the streets of London where I was living. And I had this encounter. And it was like this, it was similar encounter to the day I wrote Refiner's Fire. This has only happened to me a couple of times in my life. And there was electrical current in the air, and it was coursing through my body, and I felt presence. And then I heard, now this is a road in London. There's cars zipping by, and I'm just walking, and I heard crackling in the atmosphere, come, now is the time. And I remember just looking up and going, now?
Wow.
Like, I'm a bit of a mess. I've just arrived. I don't know anybody. Now come. Now is the time to worship.
Wow.
Come, and then come just as you are. I was writing words like come just as you are because I was a disoriented mess.
Wow.
And I was struggling with my faith. So when I sing it years later, I go back there in my mind and I go, I hope and pray that this invitation goes to people who are also bewildered, who are also disoriented, who life has thrown them some curveballs, who are struggling with difficulty. Come just as you are. Like, you don't have to, it's not like, get it together and then come.
Yeah.
No, it's come, and the love and the acceptance and the grace will restore you, will re-energize. Anyway, so that's all part of it. Of course, I'm a human too. So sometimes I can get tired of singing the same songs, and I can even become irritated by some of my own earlier songs because maybe I think, I'm in a different place now. I wouldn't write it that way now.
Yeah.
And I go, okay, I have to respect the younger version of myself. And I also have to respect the current version of myself.
Right.
And let both be true to who they are in this season.
Wow. Man, that's such a cool story. And, it's interesting because, back before I was a full-time worship leader, I was in a rock band. We were touring, and, you play the same set list every night. And I remember watching a Coldplay documentary, and Chris Martin, he's asked this question of like, what happens when you sing Yellow for the 1,000th time? Is it just autopilot? And he said, no, because I remember that for somebody out there, it's their first time hearing it. It's their first time singing it. And I think that's just kind of what has stuck with me. Yeah. And then when you bring that to a worship leader, a worship songwriter, you go back to that moment where God gave you that seed, where God gave you that gift. And it's just cool to hear that. Mm-hmm. You're talking about leading in London and the UK, and Vineyard is a part of your story. What an epic movement of God in the 90s and into the 2000s. I just remember Touching the Father's Heart, that series. Mm-hmm. I remember being a 13-year-old kid, just hearing from my dad that we're about to start a church. You're going to be my worship leader. I don't know if that was because I was free labor or if he saw a gift in me. But I just remember feeling so inadequate. And I just kind of like was laying down in my bed and listening to that record that had Refiner's Fire on it. And just weeping in my room. Light the Fire Again. What a song. These moments that you've had, talk to us a little bit. I know there's so many moments, but what's one moment that you had as you were leading worship in that Vineyard movement that just was like, it marked your life? You can't forget it. It was a moment in God's presence that changed the trajectory of your life forever.
Well, one of the things that comes to mind is October the 1st, 1989.
Wow.
Sunday. And we had, Andy Park and I were kind of like the worship leaders of our little local vineyard church, the Langley Vineyard. Wow. And he was prepping to leave and go help plant a new church. And so we thought, we've been writing some of these songs for our own congregation. Why don't we do an evening of worship and press record, so to speak?
Wow.
And, at this point there, I think that I don't know if the Touching the Father's Heart series had started yet, but it was getting close to starting.
Yeah.
Of course, we were up in Western Canada, and that was happening more down in Anaheim, California, though I would eventually, because of what's about to happen, I would end up spending quite a bit of time down there and did the Light the Fire Again recording. Wow. And et cetera. But anyway, so back to October 1st. So we got, set up some microphones, whatever. And then in the afternoon before the evening, we thought, let's just get together now that we're technically ready and just spend some time in prayer and just wait on the Lord. And I'll never forget that afternoon. I had such I had two experiences. One was this just unbelievable peace and encouragement came upon me. But then it's like I've only had this happen a couple times in my life, but the fire hit me. And now I come from Mennonite background. Okay. Doerksen is a Dutch-German name. So very, conservative, quiet. You don't show a lot of emotion. It's like the fire hit me. All I can say is like electrical current, like just coursing through my body. It knocked me to the ground, actually. Wow. And at first I thought, this is the judgment. I'm not pure enough to be in the presence of a holy God. And he's coming to take me out before I have presumptively sing these songs, on the stage. Man. And it took about 30 seconds of the fire in me to realize that, no, this is love. Wow. Actually, this is complete acceptance. And after about 15, 20 minutes of this, and I'm just weeping and everything, I'm able to come to, and I'm like grateful. okay, well, I guess we're going to do this. and we get up and, 400 or 500 people show up and we just have the sweetest time. Like just, it's not like crazy emotions. It was just peaceful. And we just sang through these songs, but you could feel presence in the room. Right. And I thought, okay, well, we're making this little, cassette tape. This was back. We're going to mix this and make a cassette tape, and we're going to offer it to our congregation, and we'll, sell a few hundred units to cover some of the costs we paid in mixing it and stuff. And that cassette tape started finding its way. It was called Changed by Your Glory, live from the Langley Vineyard.
Wow.
At the early parts of 1990. And all of a sudden, the Vineyard in Anaheim got it, this and that. It went on to sell 70,000 copies.
Wow.
And in essence, because of that night, you and I are having this conversation, because that was my first batch of songs that went out. I Lift My Eyes Up, Faithful One, Refiner's Fire, Father, I Want You to Hold Me. Those are the first little batch of songs that I wrote and then had the privilege of recording. And that is, what is that now? 36 years ago.
Wow. That's incredible. I've been a part of some live recordings, not on that scale, I'm sure, but there is a fear that kind of takes over. Like, oh man, I don't want to mess up. I hope we don't have any technical difficulties. I hope people show up. I hope these songs work. I hope the click tracks work and all this stuff. But then there is that supernatural peace of God that you just know he's in the room. And when he's in the room, fear has to leave. When he's in the room, that's when it becomes more than just music, but it becomes a moment. And, your songs have been the soundtrack of so many presence moments. And what is that like to, I was just thinking about this, a lot of times when songwriters have been around the block for a while, they hear about their songs that were written decades ago. And it's like, oh, I don't want to just keep looking back at the glory days. But for worship leaders, there is something about like, that even that term, the glory days, it's like, no, this has been a song that is continuously being refreshed and hitting refresh on the computer screen, if you will, of the global church, and how it's not, you're looking back and being like, man, I just wish I could go back there. But like, you're looking back on the faithfulness of God and seeing how he has made himself known and used a vessel like Brian Doerksen, or used a vessel like whoever is listening and you're writing songs. God can do that, and he can work through a moment. Talk to us about, here you are in 2025, you're about to go on the road and lead worship again. You're still writing songs. What is it that keeps that passion? And maybe a recent song, right? A recent song that you're like, man, I'm pumped about this one even more.
Well, I mean, there's a lot there. And I think what you're describing, we have this, people can get caught up in nostalgia, like trying to maybe recreate the past. And you use the phrase glory days. But the positive side of that is, if a song has served people well, and if it's been a place of encounter for people, if it's been a facilitator of that kind of encounter, and I guess I would argue too that in every genre of music, classical to pop to jazz to folk, the best songs, the enduring songs, there's an expression, they're evergreen. So when you hear I Can't Help Falling in Love with You, originally sung by Elvis, or when you hear some of these, or the great hymns, right? Because there was both probably encounter in the writing of it, and also so many people have connected with it over the years. There's life there. Yeah. Like, life doesn't mean new. It just means something rooted, something true, something that's still, it's like it's evergreen, right? So good. So I think there's lots of of place for singing songs that have been around for generations, or at least a full generation. They've stood the test of time for a reason, I guess.
Yeah.
Now, we'll go out, when we're having this conversation, I've got tomorrow night, I'm doing an event. We're doing 5 kind of tours, concert tours, not concert tours, 5 concerts as part of a tour. It's the anniversary tour of Come Now's the Time to Worship. And
Wow.
these ones we're doing in my home province of British Columbia. So, these aren't huge events. They're like 300 to 500 people each night. We go to even sometimes small towns. Wow. And gather people in that town. But we have incredible, beautiful evenings where we sing some of these legacy songs, wow, like Refiner's Fire and Come Now's the Time and Faithful One. And then we sing brand new songs that either I'm just writing or my touring partner, Marika Seward, is writing. And we find people resonate with both, right? Like they're so appreciate singing some of the quote unquote older songs yeah, because they know them so well and they're part of their journey.
Wow.
But then when they hear a new song, they go, oh, that's beautiful. That's wow, fresh. I've never heard that sung before like that. Wow. And I think for us, it having both and keeps that cycle of renewal going in our hearts, that yeah, we're both writing and still singing the old songs.
Wow. Well, what I love now is, you're seeing this resurgence of a lot of those songs from the 90s, from the late 80s, that, I grew up with, but now you're seeing Gen Z grab a hold of these songs and put new arrangements on them and or tag them on the end of something that's maybe a more current song. And it's just really cool. Like the life of a song. I love that you said evergreen, because what better word to describe it? It's always green. It's always fresh. It's always got something new for that day. Yeah. And I'm excited to see what comes next in your songwriting. And man, I don't know where our time went, dude. We've had such a great conversation. I'm filled up. My tank is full. But I have to ask you this question. I love asking worship leaders this question, Brian. What's the Holy Spirit speaking to you right now? What's just been in your prayer life? Maybe a scripture that God has just been highlighting, something that has been on repeat for you.
Well, I funny, really, really simple thing that has been being highlighted to me is that there's a scripture, Apostle Paul says, pray without ceasing. And often we think about prayer as in like making requests.
Wow.
Like our list. And that's a part of prayer. But for me, what's becoming really highlighted to me is paying attention to my breath, and a thing called the ancients called breath prayer, where when I get anxious, when I get anxious about what's going on in the world, I pause and I slow down. I pay attention to my breath, and often I have a breath prayer word. One of my main words is Abba, which is of course the word that Jesus used when he prayed to his Father. It's like this intimate. It's an Aramaic word, kind of Papa, Daddy. And if I breathe in, I'll do the.
Wow.
It's just like this Abba, and I can do it quietly or I can do it consciously. And I'm telling you, after a few moments of that anxiety just starts to subside. And I know I am loved. I am held in the everlasting arms of God. I'm a son, and I can become a non-anxious presence in the world. The world is so filled with anxiety. And I think one of our greatest callings is to become a non-anxious presence in the world. And I want to do that as in my person, in my body, and I want to do that in my songs.
Wow.
And as a worship leader, as in my life, I want whatever I do, to be embodiment of that kind of non-anxious presence. And that, which means I have to receive it first, right?
Wow.
I have to receive the peace. I have to receive the love so it's in me to give out to others.
Man, that's so good. I mean, especially with everything that's happening in the world, it's so easy to get caught up and wrapped in the rhetoric, wrapped in the anxiety, but you're so right. I mean, to be a non-anxious presence, you can walk into a room, it's the whole thermostat versus thermometer thing, right? You can take the temperature, you can set the temperature. And as a people of God's presence, as a people of peace, man, we get the opportunity to literally, like Jesus told us, be peacemakers. And I think that's such a calling for today. Brian, we're going to put some links in our show notes. If you're in the British Columbia area, make sure you check out the Come Now is the Time to Worship tour. Brian, thank you so much for spending some of your Friday with us and just inspiring us today, man. It's been a joy.
Oh, so good to have this conversation.
You've been listening to Worshipology with Kurtis Parks. Visit kurtisparks.com to learn more and check out Kurtis's books and resources for worship leaders and teams. Worshipology is part of the Worship Leader Magazine podcast network, brought to you by Worship Leader Magazine. Today's episode was sponsored by Praise Charts. Visit praisecharts.com and get everything you need for your worship team today.